Hi guys, and welcome back to another video game with Powers. I'm Jake, and in today's video, I'm going to be bringing you my in-depth review of the board game Sneferu. Now, Sneferu is coming to you from TLAMA Games. This is a game for 1 to 4 players, right around 45 minutes per playthrough, and ages 10 plus. And this one is designed by Adam Španěl. I believe that is the same guy that brought us Project L. If this is your first time watching a review video from us, we go a little bit more in-depth than maybe some other content creators do, and we go ahead and break the game down into 7 different categories. These categories are theme, components, setup, length, difficulty, replayability, and price. Within each of these different categories, I'll be giving a number rating equal to the BGG scale. So if you guys are familiar with that, you'll know what these ratings and numbers mean. And then at the end of these 7 different categories, I will go ahead and give you my overall rating for the game and mention a couple things that I really liked about the game and maybe some things I didn't particularly care for. All right, guys, let's go ahead and jump right into my review of Sneferu, starting off with the theme. I'm gonna go ahead and give the theme an 8 out of 10 here. I think Sneferu does a great job of tying in the mechanics of the game with this theme of you guys are essentially an Egyptian architect. And the pharaoh Sneferu, Sneferu has essentially hired you guys. He's had 2 failed pyramids that he's been building, and they failed, right? So he's hired you to kind of construct this 3rd one. However, you are not the only person that he has hired. He's hired multiple other people as well. So you are trying to, in this kind of race almost, to build to first complete and fulfill your pyramid, but then also build the most luxurious pyramid that is fit to his standard. So that's kind of the theme of the game here. And you guys are going to be doing this essentially by drafting blocks and spending time and food, which is a resource in the game, to be able to do so. I actually want to go ahead and jump down to the table, guys, and I'm going to show you how these mechanics tie into the theme of the game. All right, guys, so we're down here at the table where we would have something set up for a game of Sneferu. And as I mentioned, you are going to have this building board or this drafting board over here with a bunch of these different stone blocks. And you're going to be drafting these blocks on your turn as selecting a stone block. And within each of these different categories, there are going to be values that you're going to need to spend in order to claim these particular blocks. So let's say, for example, you wanted to claim this block right here. You'd have to spend 4 time and then 1 food as a resource. And so you can see that for each different column, there's going to be a different time and food resource along with extra food resources you might have to spend if you want to claim a block higher up. And so you would essentially claim this particular block. You're spending your time. So your time is going to be along the Nile River here. And so each player will have a ship and you are moving along this Nile River. Now, what's really cool is throughout the game, they set up these little quarry spots of the different elements in the game, and all of these symbols on the block, there's a couple different elements here. You got basalt, limestone, granite, and gold. Those are the type of materials that are going to be on these stones that you're going to be putting in your pyramid. And so you can land on these quarries and select a particular block to get a bonus here of these different quarries down below. And so that is really the overall premise of the game, guys. You are going to be selecting these blocks, moving your thing, and then each player is going to have a player board right here where they are going to be placing their blocks into to kind of build this pyramid. And so over time, your pyramid might look something like this with a bunch of different blocks in here. And there are special rules with this pyramid of how to place these particular blocks. You'll get bonuses if you have like contiguous areas of different materials and things like that. But that is essentially the entire game in a nutshell. You guys are actually in a race to go all the way around the Nile over to this spot. And the player who is going to have the highest built pyramid is going to be the winner. So like I mentioned, guys, they do a real great job of tying this theme of you're an architect, you're trying to build this pyramid. You want to make it as luxurious as possible by having some of these same type of elements to gain more resources and food to get more blocks in order to build some more of these pyramids up. And it's kind of like a race against the time. And then they got different quarries here that you can go to get bonuses for these particular materials. materials. Last but not least, guys, they actually have character tiles in the game. So there's two ways you can play the game, just normal with no bonuses, or each character is going to have an asymmetric power that will add to the game once you guys are familiar with it. But as I mentioned, 8 out of 10 here for the theme. I think they do a great job. All right, guys, I'm actually going to stay down here on the board real quick and talk about the components. So I'm going to go ahead and give the components a 7.5 out of 10. I think these are some solid components here with this game, and I'm giving it this extra half for one particular reason, and that is just going to be that the player boards come dual layered. All right, so now this is the game found edition of the game, but this is the standard core box. So I do believe in the retail edition they will come with dual layer boards as well, but I think that's a fantastic addition to a game like this where you're going to be slotting these particular blocks in here to stay. I think if it was just a mat or something like that, it really would not work as well. So I definitely enjoy that. That makes that 7.5 for me. But these player boards are not super thick. Or not super thin, I mean. They're good, they're sturdy, they're not very flimsy at all. I love all the dual layeredness. Again, I mentioned you're gonna have 4 of these particular boards. Your tiles, nice sturdy tiles here, just solid. The board itself is really, really nice. I love the thematic presence of all these different quarries, and you're kind of moving along the Nile here. You got these particular ship meeples, which are screen printed, so that adds to that 0.5 for me as well. And then you have this block board with all of these cardboard punch out blocks. Now, they did a really great job with these blocks because they are super thick. I don't know if you can see this thickness, and that helps a lot because you're going to be drawing these blocks from the bag. And I don't know if you guys have heard me mention before, but sometimes I am a stickler for bag building games or games where you're drawing stuff out of a bag. I prefer the acrylic pieces over the cardboard pieces just because sometimes some of these cardboard pieces tend to get stuck together, and it's very hard to mix them up when you're in this bag. However, they've done a really great job with the thickness of these cardboard punch out tiles to where they are going to maneuver really well inside this bag, and you can get a really good shuffle. But other than that, there is no insert to the box, so everything is going to go, the game board will go in. You'll have to stack the pyramids a certain way for everything to kind of fit in. But look, all in all, I just think there's some really solid components, and there's about 2 or 3 things for me that increase that value of the components to make it a 7.5, but I don't think they're quite there at the great level just yet. All right, guys, let's go ahead and talk about the setup here. So I'm going to go ahead and give the setup an 8 out of 10. I think there's some great setup with this game. It's super easy. There's not a whole lot of components. You're getting the game board out. Each player is getting a pyramid board, and then you're setting up the different quarry spots. That's randomized. Each player gets their particular player color piece ship, and then all of those tiles are in that bag. You're mixing them up and then putting them on that board. Putting the tiles on the board is going to be the longest thing, but again, I don't think it's very tedious at all. Maybe 3 to 5 minutes to set this game up. It's very easy to get to the table, very easy to set up. So I think they did a great job with this one. 8 out of 10. All right, guys, moving on to the length here. So on the box, it does say 45 minutes per playthrough, and I think that holds true very well. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this one a 7 out of 10. This game sometimes can be a little quicker, and it can be a little longer than that 45-minute mark, just because, again, it is going to be off you're not moving the same amount of spaces every turn, but there is a possibility sometimes where you can get locked, and you have to spend 4 time or 5 time every turn, and that can speed the game up. But however, for the most part, I feel like on average, you're going to be about 45 minutes per playthrough. So I think they've done a great job here, or I think they've done a solid job. Let me rephrase that with their mark here. So that's going to give this a 7 out of 10. All right, guys, moving on to the difficulty. As always with the difficulty, the higher the number, the more challenging we feel the game is. The lower the number, the easier we feel the game is. And this one is coming at a 3 out of 10 for me. This game is super simple and super easy to grasp and get the table. Basically, on your turn, you are selecting a block, you're paying your resources in time and food, and you are moving your ship on the board, and then you are placing that block into your pyramid. Now, the only reason why this is not maybe a 2 or really 1, I don't think there's ever going to be a board game that's a 1 unless it's like checkers maybe, but even then I don't think you consider checkers a one. Candyland maybe, sorry, maybe those games maybe would be considered at one partially, but I think 3 here. The only reason why I would say this is just a little bit more difficult than a 2, what I would normally get it, is your quarry system. So they have those different color quarries on the map, and it's when you start your turn, if you draft a block of that same color, you get that ability of the quarry, but you got to move your ship first, so sometimes you forget. That might be the only thing that you might not remember. And then there are placement rules with the blocks on your pyramid where you make a continuous area, and once that area gets blocked off, then you gain the bonus. And sometimes it can be just a little confusing because you think you might have closed the area off, but it's not actually closed off because there's a space to the left or to the right or maybe above that is open. And so you might claim that food thinking you box it off, but in reality you have not. So those are really the only 2 things that can be a little confusing to grasp the first time that you play the game, but once you kind of see it modeled and get the hang of it, you're like, I understand it now, so I don't think it's that difficult. All in all, difficulty 3 out of 10. All right, guys, moving on to our replayability here. I'm gonna go ahead and give this one a 7 out of 10. I think there's some solid replayability here, but there's nothing that's gonna be a game changer, right? Of course, the different blocks that are gonna come out every single time on that board is gonna give you new blocks to choose from, but there are a lot of spaces on that board, so you're gonna see a lot of the same blocks almost every time, just in different positions. Now, that is gonna affect how you play the game because sometimes a particular block might cost you 0 extra food, sometimes it might cost you 2 or 3, so that's going to change. And of course, the way you build your pyramid is going to change, and the quarries are going to change as well, but I really don't think any of that is super game changing. I'm just giving the replayability here a solid 7, right? You play this game, you might want to play it one more time, and that's really about it for this one. All right, guys, last but not least, let's go ahead and take a look at the price here. So you can actually still pick this up on GameFound right now for 32 euros. I believe that comes out to be about 35 US dollars. And that is probably right in the price point where this game falls in a lot of other games around its style or similar size with that same price point. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this one a 7 out of 10. I think it's a solid price point. As I mentioned earlier, you know, when looking at other games like this, like Project L, you know, this is the game, the same, blah, blah, blah. Project L, looking at Project L and some of those other style games where this falls into, they're right around that $35 price point as well. So it falls right in that mean middle area. So that's why I'm gonna go ahead and give this price a 7 out of 10. Solid price for this type of game. All right, guys. Last but not least, we've made it here to my overall rating. I'm gonna go ahead and give Sneferu a 7.5 out of 10. I think this is a solid game. It reminds you, well, I don't want to say it reminds me a lot of Project L, but I can see some of the similarities here with Project L of you have all these different blocks with symbols on them. You're building this pyramid and you want to build contiguous areas, right? And close these areas off to do different things. So it almost is just like Project L from the standpoint of I got those pieces, I'm trying to fit these pieces into the different puzzles and try and do that. So I do see that influence in this game. Some of the things that I really enjoyed about Sneferu here is the game is very simple to play. There's really only 4 things you're doing on your turn. You're selecting a block, you're spending the resources for the block, you're putting the block into your pyramid and gaining any bonuses, and then you are refilling the board. That's it. Oh, and you're also moving your ship along and claiming any bonuses, but those are really the 4 main things that you are doing on your particular turn. So this game is super easy to teach, all right? The second one is based off that the game is super easy to get to the table, right? Doesn't have a lot of setup. It's not very complicated to teach, so you can bust this out. It does have a relatively short playtime at about 45 minutes, and I would say it holds true to that 45-minute count even with newer players. And so it's just very friendly. The box is small. It's a smaller box game, so you could take this with you, very easy to travel with. So that's something I really enjoy about the game as well. And my final thing, I might have mentioned it before, but this really does feel like Project L, or I can sense there are elements of Project L into this game. And we do very much enjoy Project L for us. That's one of our top, I believe it was in my top 30 games of all time from last year. So we really, really enjoy Project L. We enjoy all those games in their line. And so we can definitely see some of the influence, that's probably the better word, of Project L in this game. And I think that's why I enjoy it. All right, guys, there are two things that I particularly did not enjoy with Sneferu, or some things that can pop up when you're playing Sneferu that I did not particularly like. Let's go ahead and start off with the very first thing. Sometimes this game can be very punishing if you run out of the food resource. So along with time, food is what you're also going to be spending to claim these blocks. And sometimes it's a fixed amount, and sometimes you'll have to spend additional food in order to claim blocks higher up on the column that you might want. Now, there is a free space where you don't have to spend any food, but that is going to cost you 5 time in order to do that. And that is very punishing, guys, because there's only about 42, I think, total spaces on the board. So think about spending 5, if you're spending 5 time 2 to 3 times, that's a good chunk of the spaces that you've just covered in the game, and you're only getting 3 blocks for it. So it can be very punishing, and it's hard. Like at first, you're going to generate a lot of food because the lower spots on your board are going to get you free food. But then over time, you got to work on building those contiguous areas and closing them in order to generate more food. So if you don't do a good job of that and managing that food resource, the game can be very punishing for you, and you're not going to end up with maybe you'll only fill the bottom 2 rows of your pyramid up, and it's going to be very, very punishing for you. The second thing is, more times than not, you are never really going to actually fully build out your pyramid. Most of the times you might get to the second top level. Most of the times it's going to be the 3rd level that you're going to get to, or the one right below that. And for me, that's kind of a bummer. Like, I wish throughout the course of the game they made it to where you would fully be able to build out this pyramid, and then maybe you would score with contiguous areas or something like that. But essentially the game is a race to get the most blocks built in your pyramid while getting to the end at the same time. So it's this fine, delicate balance. And like I said, more than not, you're never going to be able to fully build out every single space in your pyramid, and it's just kind of a bummer for me. But those are the 2 things that I kind of had an issue with, or kind of annoying to me while I was playing this game, Sneferu. But those 2 things being said, guys, I really did enjoy this game, which is why I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. All right, guys, if you enjoyed this content, smash that like button, hit the notification bell, drop down in the comments below. Have you guys played Sneferu? What are your thoughts and opinions on it? Do you agree with me, or do you not? Drop those down in the comments below for me. And as always, guys, if you are not subscribed to our channel, please go ahead and subscribe so we can keep bringing you some more awesome content. All right, guys, you'll have a great one. Bye.